Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Outdoor Adventure Lab. My name is Zan Zerbel, and for anyone who's new to the lab, this is where we have conversations with a wide range of adventurous individuals to educate, stoke, and inspire. In today's episode, Liz Craig will speak with Allison Miles and Corie Traylor about their multisport adventures, moving fast and light in the mountains, and adventuring with our furry friends. And with that, on with the show.
All right. So a little bit about Alli. Alli grew up in Pennsylvania and moved to Oregon in 2009. She loves rock and alpine climbing, backpacking, camping, gravel riding, bike touring, spontaneous dance parties, and many other activities. However, ski touring, ski mountaineering, and trail runner are at the center of her passion and focus. With a background as a competitive swimmer, she has had a brief stint as a triathlete before chasing human-powered link-ups and adventures in the mountains. She is driven by creative ways of exploring new and familiar places and an ever-curious mindset about just how far she can go. When she's not chasing sunrises or powder turns in the mountains, you can find Alli working her full-time gig at Ruffwear or teaching avalanche courses for Oregon ski guides. She also volunteers as a board member for the Central Oregon Avalanche Center. And then we also have Miss Corie Traylor here. Although she grew up in the Pacific Northwest ring fast horses and dreaming about traveling, today the number one item on Corie's bucket list is not dying in an avalanche. That's a great goal. For the most part, she likes going up and down mountains, whether the going is done with skis, crampons, trail runners, or her bare feet. After spending 2 years weekend warrioring her way to the summit of every volcano in the Cascade Range, in weather ranging from SPF 70 recommended to my eyelids are frozen shut, she's up for pretty much anything that doesn't involve festering inside a tent for weeks at a time. Got you on that one. She spends her springs trying to ski new to her lines on volcanoes, her summers beating the running shoes to a pulp on scree, her autumns trying to rock climb hard, and her winters avoiding going dry tooling and skiing breakable crust. Those are great things to avoid in the winter. Oh, and she has a really cute dog named Cinder that does most of those things with her. Cinder's in the background there.
Cinder's sleeping.
She works full-time as a copyright, and when she's not thinking up creative ways to play in the mountains, she can be found riding her horse or reading novels. So welcome, ladies.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Thanks, Liz.
So let's start with how you guys met and became partners in climb. What connected you guys?
You want to go, Alli?
Sure, I'll jump in, and you can fill in any gaps that I miss. I believe we met through a combination of our then boyfriends, now husbands, and Instagram, and and then just kind of connected. I think I remember the first time we met in person. I think I had been running at Smith and you two were climbing, and I came out and met you when I was done with my run and climbed one pitch with you that I think you led, Corie, and I TR'd it. And then it was all good times and adventures from then on out. And I do have this, I'd love to share this like one little story that I think will forever live in my memory of, I feel like the epitome of my friendship with Corie is when we were running the Wonderland Trail and we got to a river crossing that was the water was actually like rushing over the log bridge, and the log bridge also looked like it had moved downstream from where it should be, and it was kind of like tilted, and the far end was fully underwater, and we were like, I don't even know how many miles, like 40 miles probably into the day, and we had to go another like almost 20 miles before Andy was crewing us before we'd see him again. And we just had this like crisis moment of like, do we try to cross this thing and potentially die, or should we turn back and like go 13 miles uphill and then like probably get there at midnight and have to figure that out? And we had this like, we like looked at each other and like we like did a bunch of problem solving and stuff, and then at one point we looked at each other and we were like, what would Andy and Aaron do? And then we were like, they would go for it. And we did, and we lived.
Good. Awesome.
So
What was when you guys did the Wonderland Trail together, did you do it as like a single day push or in sections?
Our goal was a single day push. We DNF'd in large part due to that river crossing because we lost some time kind of hunkering down during a kind of stormy potentially oncoming thunderstorm. And then I think that river crossing kind of like took us like pretty far off our time plan and was like a huge adrenaline spike that we did not need at that point in the run. And and then the next kind of the final, I think, component was that the trail we were planning to take was closed. And so we had to take the high trail, which involved a lot of kind of navigating across snowfields in the dark and trying to follow the trail. And it was really fun. But by the time we got to our next point where Andy was crewing us, it was like, I don't know, 1 or 2 in the morning. We were like 3 hours behind our time plan, and we ended up just pulling the plug. And also we didn't give ourselves enough time because we were trying to do it all in a weekend. And like, I had to drive back to Bend on Sunday afternoon, and Corie had to drive back to Portland, and like I had to be at work on Monday. And it was basically like, okay, if we run through the night, finish Sunday afternoon, and then I have to drive to Bend and work Monday. And it was like, okay, we'll come back another time.
But we did spend 3 or 4 hours listening to Harry Potter books on tape in the middle of the night while we were hiking through said snowfields. So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, no cougar fears when you've got Harry Potter books on tape blasting.
It was like Voldemort coming out of Mount Rainier or something.
Way scarier than like bears and cougars and stuff.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Corie, do you have any like prominent memories of adventures with Alli other than that, her Wonderland Trail experience memory?
Well, I also remember like girl crushing hard on Alli over Strava before we met in person, because we're both pretty heavy Strava users. But at that point, I think I was trying to train for my first marathon or something. And Alli was the person who was always like commenting on my stuff and saying, oh yeah, you got it. Like you can totally do this. And I would be like, what workouts do you recommend? It was just this like really funny friendship that kind of blossomed around our mutual love for spending lots of time exercising. And then I do remember the first time we met at Smith, I think that Alli hadn't eaten in like hours. Was the other reason I think we ended up walking out of the park, because I think you were eating an apple and you were like, I'm pretty hungry. I was like, have you eaten in a while? I think you'd run like 15 or 16 miles and hadn't really brought very much food with you.
Oh man.
I've improved since then. Now I'm like every 45 minutes I'm eating.
Do you set a timer like to eat on clockwork, or you've trained your body to eat on clockwork?
I don't set a timer, but that's actually a really good idea, because it turns out that every 45 minutes is really easy to follow until like 5 or 6 hours in. And then it's like, wait, when was the last time I ate? Oh, I'll just eat now just in case. And everything kind of goes out the window after that.
Awesome. Yeah, I've definitely heard of people like setting a timer or like whatever to keep fueling, especially during long adventures. Exactly, like 5 or 6 hours in, you forget. Although I always look forward to eating on adventures, so like usually not a problem.
Oh yeah, we could do a whole separate episode on snacks.
That would actually be pretty cool. But not to derail this one, let's talk about the 3-finger jack attempt and success this year. So go ahead, either one of you want to kick off how it started.
I can't remember how we started talking about it. There's a thing that a lot of people call the yo-yo, where you start at the Sandium Pass trailhead and you run up 3-finger jack and then run back across Sandium Pass and then go climb Mount Washington and then come back to Sandium Pass. And Alli and I have been talking about that, but we just started thinking about how much fun it would be to just do one of them after work and kind of meet in the middle after work, in air quotes. And it was, I think it was 2 years ago. We thought we had a really good weather window, and so we decided to drive down or Allie in her case, drive up and meet down there. And we had all of our gear sorted, and we got to the trailhead, and we were pumped. And we knew that there was a potential that some weather would move in, but we didn't think it would be much of an issue. And we like made it all the way up the climbers trail, and we gained the summit ridge. And I think we were making our way across the crawl when it just started ripping wind. Like we were like shouting at each other, and then this like a little bit of precip started to come in, and we like hunkered down, and we're in, of course, in running shorts. I don't think we brought gloves.
We didn't.
Yeah, or any layers. I think we maybe had
we had jackets, I think.
Had light jackets. But we were just like hunkered down. We have some really funny videos of us just like hugging our knees and like, is it worth it? Should we keep going? And at that point, the summit was like, you know, like 100 feet away, and we couldn't see it because the wind was coming in so bad and all these clouds were moving in. So we bailed and ran down, and eventually the rain actually did end up catching us, which was not awesome, but
yeah,
we made it back. We were still psyched. And then we tried again a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
With success. Yeah.
Yeah, and that first attempt was actually, I had not summited Three Finger Jack at that point yet either. So I think that was part of the motivation for doing Three Finger Jack. And it's about halfway between us. It was a nice like, oh, we can both like skip out of work a little bit early, and then it's not that far for either of us to go, get back kind of late. But yeah, and then my iPhone fell out of my running vest at some point too high on Three Finger Jack, and I think I realized it by the time we got back to the car. I don't know when I realized it, but it was like it was gone, and it was raining by then. And a couple weeks later, somebody, I think Corie had texted the phone and said, if you find this phone, call this number or text or whatever. And somebody texted someone from Eugene, and they had found my phone up in the scree, and it had bivvied up there for a couple weeks and been rained on, and it survived. So the guy that found it plugged it in, and so shout out to Apple, I guess, for that one. But yeah.
Phones built to endure scree fields and any kind of weather.
Yeah. Yeah, and then this one was just kind of like, it was so glorious because it was, I think, very similar conditions to what we encountered on our failed attempt, but everything lined up perfectly. And I mean, as you can see in this photo, we're hanging out on the summit in tank tops, and we're like, this is great. It's just glorious, basking in the sun, and we got this amazing evening alpine glow as we started climbing back down, and it was everything we had hoped for the first time. So
perfect. Redemption was found.
Yeah.
We saw like a dozen baby goats, which was pretty great.
Really?
Yeah, a bunch of goats.
I didn't even know, like, I've never seen goats like in the Central Cascades. That's crazy.
Yep, they like to hang out on that scree field on the west side of Three Finger Jack.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So have you guys gone and done the yo-yo, or is the yo-yo in your,
I have
on the short list?
Yeah, Andy and I yo-yo. Andy calls it the Lazy Climbers 50K because it's about a 50K.
Yeah.
We did that, I think 2016. It was both of our first 50K. I bonked massively at mile 18 because I didn't know how to eat or drink because I knew nothing about ultra running at that point. So it wasn't super comfortable, but I would like to go back. And Allie and I have talked about going back and doing it in a slightly better style.
Just like a little quick after work adventure.
Yeah.
Just shove it in, whatever. Oh, that's awesome. All right.
Pull an all-nighter.
Yeah. All right. So Zan, let's switch over to the next slide. And I think it's the Shasta Alley. So this was an attempt to go from Shasta, California to the summit of Mount Shasta. So if you want to go for it, tell us a little bit about that one.
Yeah. So I have like a kind of a secret love for town to summit type of adventures. I get really excited and motivated about anything, that kind of objective. And last winter, I went down to Mount Shasta area for a ski mountaineering, like uphill ski race, with actually the two guys in this photo, Thomas and Matt. And on the way home, Matt and I were driving through, we had carpooled and we were going through Mount Shasta City and staring up at Mount Shasta and talking about just all kinds of big adventures and link ups and multi-sport stuff, and how cool it would be to run from Mount Shasta City to the summit with our little skinny skimo setups. And so I like made it my goal for the spring, but then of course the pandemic happened, and the upper mountain, well, aside from like the travel ban and stuff, the upper mountain closed above 10,000 feet until mid-May. And so I was kind of watching that, and as things were looking like they were going to start reopening, I was just kind of watching the weather and looking for a window, and decided to do it on a Thursday and take the day off work. And Matt, I just happened to be like texting with him the day before, and I don't even know what it was, but I was like, hey, I'm going down to Shasta to do this thing we talked about. Do you want to come? And he's like, let me see if I can skip out of work too. Oh, and can Thomas come too? So the three of us, we met down there, and because it was still like, we were still trying to social distance. We're not very social distance in this photo, but we were trying to still honor the social distancing guidelines. And yeah, we started around, I think 4:30 in the morning. We just kind of randomly picked like a corner in town and started like jogging, and it was pretty goofy. Even though these skis are super light, it was still pretty goofy to be like jogging with skis on our backs and full packs. And this photo is at horse camp, around 8,000 feet, and there's a really nice spring there. So we refilled water and changed out of our running shoes into our ski gear, and then we were able to travel on snow from here to the summit. And my husband Aaron had hiked up from Bunny Flat just with his regular ski touring gear and joined us for the part on the upper mountain. And yeah, we had a stellar day, just kind of like not trying to go all out or set any kind of speed time, just like let's keep moving and be efficient, but like enjoy it and have snacks and just enjoyed being on the mountain. And yeah, so we just had a really, really beautiful day, perfect weather, no wind, which is, if you know Mount Shasta, getting to go to the summit and not having wind impede you is really special. So yeah, we topped out, had a great ski down, and then put on our running shoes right here. I think we took this photo actually on our way heading back down, and then ran most of the downhill back to town. It was very hot. We came across like a gated community with one of those big like water feature fountains in the front, and like definitely took the opportunity to dunk our heads in the cold water, and then got back to town about 13 hours round trip. So wow. Very full day.
And do you know what the elevation of like Shasta, California is? It's
around 36, I think which is okay. What Bend is. I think it's pretty close to Bend. So it was like 10,500 or 10,600, something like that, like vertical gain.
That's a big day.
Yeah, it was big. But it was like, it was way more enjoyable than I was expecting it to be. I thought it was just going to be like this really steep, at least getting from town to horse camp. I thought, because you gain like over 4,000 feet. So I was thinking that was just going to be like a totally steep sufferfest. And it was actually like a really nice trail that would probably be quite runnable without skis on your back. We mostly hiked that part.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's awesome. That is a super cool adventure. I think that's actually what caught my eye for you for this episode, was like going from Shasta all the way to the summit, like combining those efforts and like multi-sport. What have you done any other city to summits recently? I know you did one in Bend.
I did. And
Right?
actually, I'd love to add one more thing about
Yeah.
Shasta. One of the coolest things about this adventure was that we bumped into 2 hikers when we were almost back to town. And they were like, they saw we had skis on our back and they were like, oh my gosh. And then they actually came down and chatted with us in town when we got back, and we were like laying on the sidewalk and stuff. And their friend, Jack, had been involved in creating the trail that goes from town up to horse camp. And it was an old trail that had gone into disuse. It had actually been used before there was a highway that went up to Bunny Flat. It had been used by John Muir and other people climbing the mountain back in the late 1800s. And he had led the effort, at least in rebuilding this trail. And it had only opened like a year ago, and we had no idea. I just like happened to find the trail in my mapping research. And so that was I ended up talking to Jack on the phone for like a half an hour or so once I got back home. And he wrote an article for the, I think it's called the Shasta Herald, the local newspaper, about the trail being used. And so he was really excited that people were like discovering the trail and using it in this way. And I was super excited to learn about the work that he had done. So yeah, kind of like a neat little serendipitous point on that story. But yeah, I've also run from my house in Bend to the top of South Sister, which is our kind of our closest, biggest volcano. And yeah, the inspiration for that was really just because I can run from my house. It's about 2 miles, maybe 2.5 miles to hit Shevlin Park. And then from there, I'm on single track pretty much the whole entire way, all the way to the top of South Sister. And then I ran back down and I had dropped my car at Devil's Lake. So I didn't run all the way back home, but yeah, and actually Riggins joined me on that one. It was around 40 miles. Yeah, so that was kind of what started like the town to summit kind of drive, or just like hunger.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's also awesome that your dog did that with you. Cooper, my dog Cooper, is working up to joining all the adventures, but
yeah,
that's super cool. So if we transition to the next slide, yeah. So Corie, this one's all about your jaunt up Couts Glacier and your 12-liter running vest, and it was a disaster style climbing, how you described it.
Yeah, so Kelly Cordes, who is one of my favorite human beings. I want to meet him so badly. He has a section on his website called the Sictionary, and he describes this effort. It's called disaster style climbing, and it's where you must make it to the summit. There's not an option to retreat. You can't bivvy. You have no layers or emergency gear if something goes wrong. And so when Andy, my husband, and I set out to climb Mount Rainier to go up the Couts in the first place, we had originally tried to do it with skis. So weekend before we were successful, like on this photo, we had brought our skis up, and it was super windy, horribly sun-cupped. We couldn't skin at all. So we just carried our skis up to the base of the Couts, and then I took a nap, and like the sun cups were big enough that I like laid down inside one in a little ball, and waited for it to maybe soften enough that we could bail and ski down. And so after that effort, we were both like, we still want to do this route, but we're not bringing backpacks and we're not bringing skis because it's not worth it. So we had another good weather window this particular weekend, and we like laid out our gear and what we needed, and kind of realized that we weren't going to fill our backpacks up with what we had packed. I think we had this little 30-meter rope and a few ice screws, and yeah, like that there's a picket on my backpack. And so I made the joke, we have these 12-liter Dynafit running vests, and I was like, what if we just take these running vests and don't bring any layers with us? And I have a tendency to overestimate like weather, climbing conditions, general fitness, ability to, not eat for many hours. But Andy was psyched, and so we loaded up these little 12-liter vests and ran up the Couts. And running up is relative. It still took us like 17 hours car to car. We were moving pretty slowly because we hadn't done any climbing on that side of Rainier. And as Andy will admit, I don't think he had all of his alpine meds, so he was a little ill for the last couple thousand feet. But I get really excited to try to do semi-technical climbing or scrambling as fast as possible. So this was a super fun way of testing that, just taking a few screws, a really light rope. And it was also extremely comfortable because we were in mountaineering boots and not ski boots the whole time. So we could ski down, and it wasn't as fast descending the DC as it would have been, I think, if we had skis, but it was still a really fun outing. And we lucked out and we had super good weather. So aside from some wind on the summit, we stayed warm enough. I think I did most of the climbing in this Nano Air Puffy, but I don't think I even took my shell. I did bring a light shell just in case it was really windy, and I don't even think I took it out of my backpack, my vest, I guess.
Out of your vest, yeah. Oh. It just makes climbing so much more enjoyable, having not having a 30-pound pack on your back with skis. Yep. Yeah. Although I guess if we have Alli's Skimo skis, they'd probably fit right on the vest. They probably make a vest for that.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, actually, the vest that I wore it's in Ultimate Direction. I think it's a 20-liter fast packing. It's designed for fast packing.
Okay.
Yeah, and it worked. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's just fun.
So should we continue on to adventuring with dogs? Since I think I've seen Riggins or one of your dogs poking in the background, Alli.
Yeah, we have the Choss Boss, which is not our dog, but we're watching her this week. And then I've got Fernspiegel on the floor here. She's our puppy. And Riggins is around here somewhere. Riggs. We'll see if he makes an appearance.
I understand. Cameras are scary. Cooper was camera shy and ran away. So
yeah.
And now he's wiped from running around Selwood, I guess. So Alli, let's talk about when you took Riggins up Mackenzie Pass in the trailer and went skiing.
Yeah. So this photo is from when we'd gotten Riggins. He was about 6 months old when we got him in the spring of 2016, and we had probably had him. I think this was still April, so we had probably had him a few weeks when I did this little adventure. And when we adopted Riggins, as soon as we picked him up, we immediately went onto Mount Hood and camped in the snow along the White River Canyon and did a little ski tour with him. And then right after that, I took him on a bike tour in this cart out in Eastern Oregon. And so coming back from that, I wanted to put it all together, and we pedaled up Mackenzie Pass, and he was still small enough to not only fit comfortably in this cart, but also I could pedal with him. And now, since then, he has become the world's biggest border collie, and he weighs about 60 plus pounds. So now I have high hopes for pulling Fernspiegel in this cart. But back in 2016, Riggs rode in the cart, and I just attached my skis on there, and I have some this bike I have is a touring bike, so it's got some nice low granny gears, and we just kind of pedaled our way on up to the Mackenzie Pass and toured over to Little Belknap Crater, and timed it really well, because that whole area is a lot of lava flow and can be kind of that could be less than ideal once the snow starts melting out. But the timing was just right in probably late April of that year anyway, to skin out and do a little ski tour and just and I was just excited to be ski touring in bike shorts. I don't know. It just, yeah, I love the kind of the novelty of those kinds of combinations. And so, yeah, and we got back to the D Wright Observatory area where I had parked the bike, and everybody was just like, all the folks there that were biking up and down the highway were just like getting a huge kick out of Riggins and his cart and the fact that we had skis and wondering what was going on. But yeah, it was a blast. And we went from the gate. We didn't go from the town of Sisters. That would be very badass. We went from the gate, which is definitely still a good climb, but it's only about 6 miles each way. So very doable in a half day, which is about how long it took us. And yeah, just a kind of a very pleasant type 1 type of adventure.
It's now on my bucket list for next spring.
I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. It's awesome anytime you can take your dog adventuring with you. Like, it's worth the little extra effort to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's just, what I love about it is then it's the adventures about them and their experience and sharing that experience with them. And it's not about like, oh, me, what's going on with me? How do I feel? How fast am I going? Am I going too slow? You know, blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh my gosh, look how much fun Riggins is having. And oh my gosh, look at him rolling in this patch of snow. And like, I'm just sharing the stoke with him.
That's awesome. Corie, do you also have a Border Collie mix?
I do, and we actually got Cinder from the same rescue that Alli got Riggins from. Her
cool.
Needed a Home, which is in Bend. But we
What's
got
the name of it?
Heard You Needed a Home, like HERD, like a herding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. And so, sorry, go ahead. I interrupted you.
Oh no, we got Cinder. Cinder's 2. She's in the background sleeping.
Yeah.
The only time she sleeps is when it's hot. We got her for about 2.5 feet, a little over 2 years. I think we got her as a puppy though. And she's about 10. They guessed she was about 10 weeks old when they got her. And yeah, she's a Border Collie, Aussie Terrier, 40-pound adventure dog.
And so I know you sent me the picture of her with middle sister. Do you want to share a little bit about that adventure?
Yeah. So Cinder, since we were able to get Cinder so young, we started teaching her. She's got pretty good mountain sense. She spent a lot of time in the snow and the rocks. She knows a lot of different words that have been very helpful since we've started taking her out on volcano adventures. And Andy and I had been up Middle Sister a few times, so we knew what the deal was, and we decided to actually make an overnight out of it, which ended up being a good idea because when we pulled up to the trailhead, it was sunny, but as we got higher on the mountain and kind of reached the toe of the Hayden Glacier that night, it was nasty weather. We were actually a little worried that we weren't going to be able to climb the next day. We had to like dig out a big snow pit to put our tent in. It was like ripping wind. And so we like hunkered down in the tent and just went to sleep pretty early. My favorite part about ski mountaineering is that you don't have to get up early because you want the snow to be soft in the spring. So we got to sleep in and woke up and the sun was shining. It was beautiful. Cinder was having snow zoomies around the tent, which is my favorite part about camping in the snow with her. And she carried all of her own stuff in. So she has one of the, she has a little Ruffwear backpack, which has been really awesome for a lot of reasons, because not only can she carry her own stuff in, but it also has a really amazing handle on it. I don't work for Ruffwear, but I'm just going to like push their product for a moment because I love it. And so the handle has made our lives a lot easier when we do stuff like this, because if she does need help with anything, we can just like yank her up, because she is only 40 pounds. It's like easy to pick her up and move her. But it also has like a pretty secure like little lock on it. So the Hayden Glacier does have crevasses on it. And Andy and I felt confident about avoiding them, but we did bring a rope in case she was feeling psycho and needed to like have a glacier zoom me. I wasn't looking forward to having to deal with that. But it was actually like a perfect day. The glacier was totally closed. We got to the North Ridge, put skis on our backpacks, and we did put a rope on her because it was a little icy. And she was just like a little bit nervous about how icy it had ended up being. And we are able to put her like on our shoulders if we need to. She actually knows if you ask her if she needs help, she will jump into your arms or like step up on you if she's nervous, which is, border collies are great dogs.
Yeah.
And so we knew she was nervous, so we just like helped her get to the top, and then we belayed her down the South Ridge, which is the aspect we ended up skiing, and she just like ripped back to camp with us, and she sticks really close to us and just barks the whole time and loves it. Skiing is her favorite thing in the world.
I can't tell. So do you guys think that border collies are just like snow obsessed, or do you think you train them to be snow obsessed? Because mine is also very snow obsessed.
I don't know. Maybe they just pick up on how excited we are.
That's kind of my theory, is like, I'm stoked about snow, so he's stoked about snow. But they're great. They're honestly great adventure dogs, especially if you like snow sports. We haven't done like the winter skiing, so I don't know how he'll do in like the cold, deep powder, but so far spring skiing has been like big fan.
I also have a non-scientific theory that for dogs, because their sense of smell is so sharp, they're smelling a lot more in the snow. Like I think that, and I could totally be making this up, but I think that the snow like maybe holds smells or something, or has some sort of like attraction in that way. Because I think for Riggins it's totally natural, and Fernie is the same way. She just like, as soon as she was introduced to snow, she just went nuts. And the way I watch them, like Riggins will, when he's running through the snow, he'll like dip his nose into it and like dunk his nose in the snow. So that's my theory.
They get stoked about a patch of snow like this big that like does, if it's a field, great, but if it's just like a little bit on the trail, it's like, oh, so exciting. We did have a couple questions. Are there any crampons? We talked about the harnesses, but do your dogs use crampons? Which actually, I do have a follow-up question on that, because obviously they don't have like at least I don't know that Ruffwear makes puppy crampons. But like trimming your dog's nails, do you leave them a little bit longer so that they can like grip better in the snow and ice? Or do you still like trim them normally?
We still keep cinders trimmed just because I've had bad experiences with dogs splitting their nails. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I don't know if Alli, you have the same thing. Like, I think because of running so much with her nails stay pretty short because just like the trail abrasion helps file them down. But yeah, I've never noticed any traction issues in the snow. There are times that I put crampons on that cinder's been fine.
Cool.
I don't know if you've had the same experience, Alli.
Yeah. Oh no.
We don't really need to trim. And yeah, I think that they just stay worn down, and but we also don't let them grow for extra traction. I think. Are you guys losing? Do you guys have me?
We have you now.
I just got a notification that my. Okay, good. I got a notification that my internet signal was weak. We just kind of. I would say we make conservative choices with the kind of slopes that we take them on and the firmness. And I've thought about, and I've mentioned it to the Ruffwear product designers about dog crampons and stuff, but then as soon as I think about, dog crampons, they'd be great, I just imagine a dog like jumping on someone's puffy jacket and like an explosion of feathers. And I don't know if it would I just imagine like the way dogs kind of run around with disregard sometimes, like the shredding of gear that would be possible. So
they just need like little
would be very
little
realistic.
studs.
I like the idea.
like little
Yeah.
tire studs.
Like yak trucks.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm trying to make sure we've gotten all the questions. Do you blue bag your your pup's poo on glaciers?
We do pack it out, not necessarily in a blue bag, maybe in like a dog pickup bag, but yes, definitely pack it out.
Yeah. And then we do have another question. We can kind of circle back to it. This is kind of going back to your Shasta summit from Zev. And he was asking about if you've ever thought about or heard of anyone summiting Mount Hood from Hood River, like bicycling up to Timberline and then going up the south side.
I haven't.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Sign me up.
There you go. You guys have someone
Or
who
up and
do it with you
over.
guys. Yeah. Go up the
Go
north
up-
side,
up-
down the south side, and then
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
someone
Have
shuttle
move
your
back
bike.
for you.
Corie.
Yeah.
I need to get more extreme with my bicycle skills first. I'm a notoriously unskilled cyclist. Working on it.
Okay, so then if we want to switch to the next slide, Zan, we've got one more highlight for Corie. So the Three Sisters Traverse. This has been on my radar for probably like a year and a half now. So yeah, we would all love to hear about your experience on the Three Sisters Traverse.
Yeah, so my husband and I wasn't my husband at the time, but I don't even remember how we heard about it. Our friend Mitch Thompson held the FKT on it for a really long time. I think it got broken a couple of years ago. And so we got really excited as soon as we heard about it. And the first time we tried it, we actually bailed after summiting Middle Sister because we couldn't figure out how to get up the north side of South, which is actually, in my opinion, the route finding crux of the entire endeavor is getting up the north side of South. So we bailed and sort of just cut our losses and went back to the car, which ended up being more miles, I think, because the whole thing is 18 miles with about 10,000 feet of climbing. And I think we ended up over at 20 miles because we had to circle back to Pole Creek that first time. But then we went back, I think it was either later that year or the year afterwards, and we had a very excellent map. And we managed to do a car-to-car in, I think, a little over 14 hours. We went up from Pole Creek Trailhead. We took the south ridge of North Sister and then just went up and down all of them, and then went up it would be the north, I think it's the true north ridge of South Sister. And there's actually at least at the time, a very scary fixed line kind of rope situation coming down the north side of South Sister, which we sort of very carefully touched to get to the top. And then made it back to Devil's Lake. And then we were so stoked because it was so fun. North Sister, scrambling up North Sister in tennis shoes is the absolute best. We went back the next year and we ended up we decided that it would be faster rather than going up the south ridge of North to actually take the south. I'm terrible. I have to think about it in direction terms, the southeast ridge of North Sister, because then you're not backtracking at all. So we kind of bushwhacked our way up until we found the trail on the southeast ridge. And we shaved 3.5 hours off of our previous year's time, which was amazing. Just a much better route planning. We were both much better runners at the time. We just had more experience in the mountains, and we've actually tried 2 times since then, but both times we didn't actually get to try because everything was on fire. So the last two years that we've had windows to do it, we ended up with some pretty nasty fires down in the area. So still hoping to go back and do it, but it's so fun, and there's great, places to fill up water if you're willing to take the Giardia challenge, or you can, bring your filter and refill, and it's great. It's just a really good way of being out in the mountains for half a day, or if you're really fast, like a quarter of a day.
So have you guys always done it as a traverse, or have you ever tried to like loop back to Pole Creek from South Sister and like do it as like a balloon?
I think it would be fun to do it that way. It would also, because the biggest logistical nightmare from Portland is that when you go, either way you go, you have to drop a car at the opposite trailhead.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so brutal having to do that because, you have to just drive all the way back to Pole Creek.
They're like 2 hours apart. Like, yeah.
One year we were lucky and we were able to persuade some friends with some beer to be our shuttle, which was amazing. But we haven't tried to convince anybody to do that since it was such a brutal shuttle for them. But I think it would be really fun to do it as a loop and then just, deliriously make your way back to the trailhead. I don't know how many extra miles it adds, actually.
I would be curious to know too.
Yeah.
What time of year have you guys done it? And like, did you ever, my friend and I tried to do like a light and fast version of like North and Middle last year. And then we ran into snow on the terrible traverse. And it was like bulletproof snow that you couldn't just kick nice steps in.
Yeah, the terrible traverse holds snow for forever. So we've kind of found that the best time of year, if you want guaranteed no snow, obviously unless you get a snowstorm in the summer, which has happened, that we've had snow in August, it's more ideal to do your attempt in late August to early September. We did it in the beginning of October one year, and the trail was bone dry, which is great.
Sweet. Someone in the chat is asking, what map did you use that was best?
We use a combination of, we always map everything in CalTopo, which had a bit, I'm not a scientifically, geologically leaning person. So it was a learning curve for me to figure out how to use CalTopo, but now I love it. And then we'll upload those maps to Gaia and use that. But also, Alli and I both have the Suunto 9 Barrow watch. Mm-hmm. And so I started using that and uploading the GPX files to my watch and using that to navigate, which has been another handy trick.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think that answers all of the questions about the Three Sisters Traverse questions. And yeah, just as we start to wrap up here, because I know we have a time crunch, we had one question that was, what are the best ways to introduce puppies to the snow and mountains? And then, are there any additional training tips or things to watch out for with your dogs in the mountains and snow?
Yeah, I can jump in on that one. Yeah, I think as far as introducing dogs to snow, just kind of having like a quick and easy escape route. So just, maybe you don't have to venture that far from the parking lot. Maybe the first time you introduce them to snow, and yeah, definitely don't go into avalanche terrain. And I would not recommend going into avalanche terrain with dogs either way, unless you like really feel comfortable on your avalanche terrain assessment and decision making. We introduced Riggins to the snow in the springtime because that's when we got him, and as I said earlier, we did that on Mount Hood, and it was like a pretty mellow, easy walk from Timberline Lodge. And then with Fernie, again, we got her in the spring too, so we took her up to Dutchman Flat and just kind of like skinned around in flat snow just to see how she did and how she liked it, and just kind of watched her and kept a close eye on her. But I mean, she was running around, she had a blast. As far as like additional training and tips and precautions, I would say the big one is like training recall, and that's just going to help no matter what you're doing on the trail or in the mountains, snow or no snow. Recall is like the biggest skill to work on with a dog to make them a good adventure partner. And yeah, when we first introduced Riggins to skiing, he wanted to chase other skiers, which was really challenging. So we had to keep him on leash when we were skinning uphill until we felt really confident in his recall that he wouldn't chase other people. We also trained him to not walk on the back of our skis. So if you ski tour, that's a big one. And it's really annoying when dogs step on the back of your skis. And so training him to kind of back off the back of our skis. And then just kind of like, I would say like basic wintertime backcountry first aid for dogs and having like a good first aid kit. I think most of the first aid kit that you'd carry for humans will mostly suffice for a dog, but it is nice to have some dog specific things, like maybe a boot, even one dog boot in case they cut a paw, or maybe a set of boots, and then things like we use mushers wax or some kind of like paw protection, so if their paws ice up, and same thing in the summer, there's like paw salves. So if you're out in the dog's paws are getting sore from the scree, then it's nice to have that kind of thing on hand to do some in the field first aid.
Awesome. And then we had one other question about the 3-finger jack after work adventure, and what length and diameter, single or half rope, what kind of rope did you use?
We brought our a 30 meter, I think it's an 8 mil rope that I don't even think it's branded. I think we just got some long rope at REI, cut it, and it's like the perfect length. It's dynamic. It's really light. It's really easy to just like mountaineers coil it and carry it. I think you could also get away with, I mean, the chances, I don't want to like reduce the chances of falling because it would be catastrophic, but we've all like, I've also like heard of people bringing like non-dynamic like taglines like they would use on like a glacier. But I mean, anytime you're up there, I mean, the rock can be sharp, so it's nice having something that's a little bit fatter.
Totally. And then I have one more question for you guys before we wrap up. And it's some advice. What would be your advice to someone who wants to get out and do big epic adventures like you guys, but doesn't know where to start? Corie, you want to kick us off here? Or Alli, whoever's ready?
I would say, I think the best thing that you can have, like the best skill you can have in your repertoire is the ability to have a good attitude the entire time, because the first time you try something that's going to be challenging or big for you, it's probably not going to be sunshine and rainbows the entire time. There's probably going to be a low moment for you emotionally or physically. You may not have packed the food and water or gear that you needed. So I think the best advice I can have is to just accept it as it comes, make sure you're safe, and just try to, enjoy the experience as well as you can.
Alli, anything to add to that?
I would say find a good mentor if you can. That's been huge for me. Somebody who's more experienced, who you trust, that you can get out there with and learn from. And then just learning to be self-reliant, or working on that kind of self-confidence. I've done a lot of, particularly with trail running, definitely a lower risk than something like mountaineering. But just going out there and doing solo things, studying maps, picking out a route and going and doing it. And even if it's not like some crazy epic thing, like all of those smaller experiences are just going to build up and teach you things and prepare you for bigger mountain objectives. So kind of I would say a combination of building up that confidence and self-reliance, and also having like at least like a couple good mentors that you can learn from.
Cool. That's some great advice from both of you. And a great way to end the show with some incredible ladies. So thank you guys both for being here. It's been great to hear everything. It's really inspiring for me to hear and excites me to get out and go and do fun things in the mountains. Yeah, Alli and Corie, thanks for joining us tonight. It was great to talk with you guys and hear your stories and spread the stoke. On behalf of the Adventure Mates and the Mountain Shop, we just want to thank you guys for both being here. We're stoked to have you as part of our Pacific Northwest Adventure community. You're truly inspiring individuals, and we look forward to seeing what else you guys have in store.
Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. Thanks everybody who tuned in.
Absolutely.
That's the end of this episode. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button below so you never miss an episode. We love hearing from our audience, so if you have feedback, would like to discuss these topics further, or if you or someone you know would be a good future guest, please let us know. Until next time, remember, adventure is better together.